Hi students, today let's learn a very important concept, that is the concept of allegation and mixture. This is a very important concept as it not only helps to solve the questions quickly, but it is helpful in so many other chapters like average, percentage, interest and ratios. Before we proceed, let's have a look on what all we are going to cover in this session. In this session, we are going to learn the basic concept of allegation, the application of this concept in all the other chapters, then the concept of dilution by mixing the other content repeatedly, and lastly, there will be a few practice questions and answers for your further development. So first of all, let's learn the concept of allegation. Let me take an example. Say in a class, the average age of boys happens to be 20 years. The average age of girls happens to be 15 years. And the average of the whole class happens to be 17 years. Now students, first important point to remember is that the difference we need to take in this case, let me focus here again, we are talking about the word difference. Now difference is something which is always positive, right? So difference basically means you subtract the smaller number from the larger number, and the difference is to be subtracted the way these lines are indicating. The cross is indicating. So the difference of 15 and 17, 2 will be written over here. Another difference of 3 will be written over here, and the ratio happens to be 2:3. Another important point, students, while deciding the ratio, you need to keep in mind that what is written below what represents that particular thing. That is, 2 happens to appear below boys, so that means the ratio of boys to girls will be 2:3. That is, if there are 2 boys, there are 3 girls. Let us take one more example. Say the average salary of males in a company happens to be 20,000. The average salary of females happens to be 15,000. And the average salary of the whole organization happens to be 17,000. Now you will take the difference and then their ratio. So ratio comes out to be 2:3. So students, you should be careful about the point here. One, the difference should always be taken the way the lines are being drawn. And secondly, we are talking about the word difference. It's a positive value, so we always subtract the smaller number from the larger number, right? Now let's move further to solve a few questions. Just try to answer this first question. In this case, the average marks of boys are given to be 25. The average marks of girls are given to be 40. And the average marks of the whole class is given to be 30. So you take the difference, 10, 5, and then you take the ratio. The ratio happens to be 2:1. So this means the ratio of boys to girls in this class is 2:1. Right, students? Now let's move on to the next question. This one. Now here you're talking about two kinds of rice. Their prices are given. The price of one kind of rice is given to be 9.3. The price of other kind of rice is given to be 10.8, and the average price is given to be 10 rupees. So taking the difference here, you get 0.8. Taking the difference there, you get 0.7. Cancelling with 0.1 or dividing by 10 that ways you can say for that matter, the ratio becomes 8:7. So this 8:7 shall become, students, the ratio in which we shall be mixing the rices worth rupee 9.30 and rice worth rupee 10.80 respectively. Right? Let's move to the next question. This one. Now here the ratio of milk and water is given in two particular vessels. You want to mix to make it equal of milk and water. Now here let's try to solve this question firstly with the help of milk. Now students, what is the proportion of milk in this? Proportion means the quantity, the ratio of milk given divided by the sum of ratios. What is the ratio of milk in the second case? It is 2 divided by 5. Now you want to mix these two to have half of the total as milk. You took that half. Now take the difference. 2 by 5, taking the LCM to be 10, 4, 5, it comes out to be 1 by 10. Taking the LCM, 14, this is 8, 7, it comes out to be 1 by 14. So reciprocating those, you get it as 14 and 10, and finally this ratio happens to be 7:5. Right, students? So the 7:5 becomes your answer in this case. Now here, let's solve this question by way of water. If you take water as a common point to start, the proportion of water in the first container is 3 by 7. Water in the second container is 3 by 5. Now, those are to be mixed to have final water as 1 by 2. Take the difference, LCM again 10 here, you get 1 by 10. LCM 14 here, you get 1 by 14. LCM 14 is to 10. Ratio happens to be 7:5. So students, you can very well see whether you solve this question by way of water or you solve this question by way of milk, the answer in any case is bound to remain the same. It remains 7:5. Let's go to the next question. In this question, you have been given the salary of clerks as 16,000, the salaries of officers as 28,000, and the average salary of those two categories as 20,000. So you take up the difference and find their ratio, which comes out to be 2:1. But is the question asking about the ratio from us? No. The question is asking about how many clerks are there. So if you read carefully, the question has already stated that there are 45 officers. Now from here, what we have got the information, what we have got the ratio as, that the ratio of clerks is to officers happens to be 2:1, and question states there are 45 officers. Students, can I say if there is one officer, there are bound to be two clerks? When there are 45 officers, the number of clerks are bound to be 90. Double of that. So this 90 becomes your answer, students. Right? Now let's move on to the next question. This one. Now here, read carefully. Two kinds of sugars have been bought at the rate of rupees 8 and rupees 2, and then those have been sold at rupees 6, and there is a gain of 50%. Mind students, you cannot compare apples with oranges. You have to have the same unit into the consideration. So in this, first of all, your selling price is given to be rupees 6. And there is a gain of 50%. So from that, you will calculate the cost price by applying the basic formula SP into 100 by 100 plus profit percent, and this comes out to be 4 rupees. Now here the question becomes, you have one sugar at rupees 8 a kg, other is rupees 2 a kg. When mixed, you get the average price as 4 rupees. So we write 8 here, we write 2 here, we write the average price of 4 here, then we take the difference 2, 4, and then we find the ratio as 1:2. Now this 1:2 shall become your answer, students. So answer for this question shall become 1:2. Let's move to the next question. This one. Now here you have milk and water ratio given. You want to take some proportion of the mixture out and you want to replace it with water so that the resulting mixture has equal proportions. Students, now again this question you can solve by way of milk or by way of water, but in this question you have proportion. Now if I try to solve this question by way of milk, how much is milk there in this? In this vessel, the milk happens to be 3/4. Now, minded students, you take that mixture out and what you added in that is water. Now, how much milk water has? Water has 0 milk in it, right? This 0 may surprise, but this is a fact because what you are putting in is water and what you are comparing is milk. As water has no milk in it, we took the quantity to be 0, and finally you want it to be equal to half. You take the difference, the ratio comes out to be 2:1. But minded students, it's a slightly different question. Question does not ask about the mixture. The question asks about what proportion of the mixture should be withdrawn. So that means whatever has been withdrawn, same has been replaced. That is, this one portion which has been withdrawn and replaced has been a proportion out of total also. So that means this 1 out of this total of 3 has been taken out and replaced. So answer in this case shall become 1/3. Right, students? In order to remove a little confusion that some of you have got, let's solve this question by way of water also. Now how much water is there in this mixture initially? It is 1 by 4. And how much water you are putting in? Mind it, you are putting complete water only. So in terms of proportion, in terms of fraction, when it is all water, it has to be represented by the value 1. It is 1, the whole water. Now, these are mixed after withdrawing, so that the ratio happens to be 1 by 2. Take the difference. Take the difference, and the ratio that you generate is 2:1. Again, students, this one portion which has been withdrawn and replaced has been initially a part of the total also. So that means 1 out of 3 has been taken out and replaced. So what shall become the answer from that? From there, the answer again happens to be 1/3. So whichever way you solve this question by way of milk or by way of water, the answer remains the same. Let's solve one more question. Now here, some quantity has been stolen and replaced with water, quite of the same type as we did in the last case. Now here, you have stolen, there was 60% wine, you steal some part of this and you replaced it with water. Now how much wine is there in the water? It is 0%. And finally, the result happens to be there is 40% wine. So you take up the difference, 40, 20. The ratio happens to be 2:1. Now students, even in this case, then one portion which is stolen and replaced has been a part of the total, which is again 3 per chance. So that means again the answer of this shall become that 1/3 of the total has been stolen and replaced. Just for your better understanding, let's solve this question by way of water also. Initially it was 60% wine. So how much water was there? It was 40%. Now what you added therein? You added water. So water means complete water or 100% water. And finally, just read it carefully. There is 40% wine. So how much percent water is there? It is 60%. So you take up the difference. You find the ratio. Again, students, this one portion that has been replaced has been a part of this total 3. So what becomes your answer? Your answer again becomes 1/3 only. Right, students? So in both the cases you can see the answer remains 1/3 only. Let's go to the next question. In this question, there is given to be 200 liter mixture and there is 10% water. Now here, what we are adding in this? In this, we are adding water. So water will have what percent water in it? Can I say water will have 100% water in this? And finally, we want it to have 25% water. So we write 25 in between. We take up the difference and we find the ratio which comes out to be 5:1. Now we have been given a total of 200 liter mixture which contains 10% water. So out of the two quantities mentioned here on the top, can I say this is given to us as 200 liters? So this is we need to find. So x shall become equal to 200 divided by 5, that is 40 liters. So this 40 liters will become our answer. Right, students? Let's move to the next question. In this question, it says the ratio of wine and water is 7:3, and finally this ratio might be reversed. So can I say you want to make this ratio as 3:7 for wine and water? Now, again, we can solve this question by either of the two ways. Let's solve this question by way of water. Now, how much water is there initially? The water happens to be 3/10 in this. What are you adding to this? You are adding to this water, which means complete water, that is whole. This is water only, so it will be represented by 1 in fraction. Now, these two are mixed so that there is 7/10 of the water. Then you take up the difference, 3/10, 4/10. The ratio happens to be 3:4. Now out of the two quantities here, this 30 liter given to us belongs to what? It represents that part which has 3/10 water. So can you say this 3 here becomes 30 liters? So what will 4 become here? Can you say it will be 30 divided by 3 into 4, or this 40 liter will become our answer. Right, students? So this 40 shall be our answer. Now let's learn a very important formula. This one. Now here, this is a repeated dilution formula. When time and again you repeat a dilution, say you keep on adding water in a wine, or you keep on adding some other quantity or other component in a total, this is where it works. Here, quantity left is equal to m, then 1 minus n by m raised to power t, where m is the total quantity, n is the quantity withdrawn, and t is the number of times this has been done. The same formula can also be thought of as quantity left divided by initial quantity is equal to 1 minus n by m raised to the power t. Because so many times it is not given in absolute value but in terms of ratio. And when it is defined in terms of ratio, in that case we can apply this formula to represent the ratio of quantity left divided by initial quantity. We will learn it better with the help of an example. This one. Now here it is given that initially it was full of wine, and finally the ratio left is wine to water is 36:13. So we can think quantity left to initial quantity is equal to 1 minus n by m raised to the power t. Let's place values here. Now quantity left of wine is 36. Out of the total of 36 and 13, that is 49, is equal to 1 minus 4 by m raised to the power 2. Let's move further. In this 36 by 49, which can be written as square of 6 by 7 is equal to m minus 4 by m square. Cancelling the square, students, you get 6m is equal to 7m minus 28. Now here m comes out to be 28 liters. So this 28 liter becomes your answer, students. Right? So this way, if we take the ratio of quantity left to initial quantity, our question actually becomes very, very simple. Right? Before we end this session, students, let's have a few practice questions for you. Here are 2 practice questions for you, followed by 2 more questions. These are the 4 answers for these 4 questions. I hope you all have learned this concept, which is a wonderful technique to reduce the time that you take to solve the questions of so many other chapters. Thank you. Happy learning.